TCU escapes with a 56-37 win here at Amon G. Carter Stadium over SMU to keep the Iron Skillet in Fort Worth. But at what cost did that win come, Carlos?
That was one expensive skillet, I'll tell you that, because they lost another cornerback, another starter, and a defensive end, Terrell Lathan. You know, who knows what he's got. They were working on his shoulder on the sideline. That could be a multi-week thing. So that would be starters number 7 and number 8 lost from the defense TCU expected to start the season with. And there's really no help on the way. They've got to play with what they've got, and they've got to face Texas Tech next week. And then Texas, which looks like it's finding a quarterback that's gaining some confidence out there and who also likes to throw the ball deep. You know, Gary Patterson was talking about that very thing tonight. You know, that's not going to change. These guys that they have now at cornerback are going to have to learn to play the ball and play that defensive style.
They had Torrance Mosley come in for Texada, also Corey O'Malley. Both got burned a couple of times. Torrance Mosley, a couple of pass interference calls. It was definitely an ugly showing for those two, especially coming to a game with Texas Tech where that might be, other than Oklahoma, one of the best offenses, and Baylor, of course, one of the best offenses in the Big 12. I don't think that's the kind of test that you want to come into with these fresh, green, inexperienced players trying to step into that big-time role.
No, and it's not going to change, but you know, the formula for TCU this year remains the same. As long as they've got an offense led by Trevon Boykin, they will put up points themselves. If you're going to have a year where you've got to bring a defensive along, the year you have an offense is the year for it. And we saw tonight that, you know, 56-37, that might become standard. It might become something you need to get used to.
I think it's interesting that Gary Patterson, though, did reference that they used like 50 players 2 years ago, but 2 years ago wasn't the season that they would have expected to have. So it'll be interesting. This might be one of Gary Patterson's greatest defensive masterpieces if he can pull off the kind of season that expectations were held for TCU beginning the season with the kind of defense that he's going to have for the rest of the season. You
know, and he's not talking about it. He won't admit it, but I think he's got to be stunned. Even a veteran coach like him, you know, every coach has had to work around injuries in their career, but 8 players in 3 games, it totally remakes the shape, what he had in mind for this defense. He had so many plans, I think, in his head for what this group could do, but you know, he's got to find out what they can do well and teach it to them in a span of 3 or 4 practices for each game. It's going to be fascinating to watch. I think I may have said that last week, but it is utterly fascinating.
TCU moves to 3-0 and starts the Big 12 slate next week, but they travel to Lubbock to do it, and that's going to be a challenging test.